Hi and good evening, everyone. My name is Albert, and this is VlogsBoutNothin. Thank you very much for happening to scroll down or visiting the channel page. I really do appreciate that. The show's been going down for about 5 months now, so if you're new, then obviously welcome. I talk about my daily life and my experiences, a whole lot of improvisational speaking, and a lot about things that I feel strongly concerning. Anyways, I hope that all of you are very well. Tonight we're talking about what happened to the music industry and moreover what happened to bangers. So, as I scrolled through music on YouTube and I never have landed on a Spotify page or title anything, some of these music third party apps I feel like are just a bunch of websites dominated by bot traffic, and bought and paid for by large music industry executives to try and make songs go viral. However, we live in a world now where the music game has completely changed. And as a result of the lack of incentivization for big labels to promote independent artists, and obviously the lack of those independent artists wanting to be promoted by those labels, have put us in a situation where there are many bangers out there. I'm sure of it. Given just kind of the circumstances we discussed, I'm sure there is more good music being made now than arguably ever before at any point, just because of the low cost and overhead that it requires now to be considered an independent artist. And I think that that's important to talk about, only because it's good, but then it also makes it so that we don't have the same kinds of shared experiences in the way that mainstream radio had brought us in the past. So, in the past, and to this day, we still have major label artists that essentially drop bangers, pop bangers, but nonetheless, music that we more or less hear if we're riding in our car or if we're at a big concert where there's lots of people. Your Taylor Swifts, your Beyoncés, your Drakes. I'm not going to say Kendrick Lamar because Kendrick Lamar just isn't very popular to me. But regardless, more of like a plant, I'd say Lamar is, in that he's an artist who's forcibly put on our radios. And I would argue not because of any reason that fans advocate for, Not Like Us was not a good song, but apparently the bots say that it is. So I guess sometimes we gotta listen to the bots. Otherwise, well, I guess we're just simply wrong. There's only, I guess, one way to be right, obviously, after all, and that decision has been removed from the human and has been given to bots. And there's so many documentaries about how the music industry has failed in that regard, and how labels and artists, just like I mentioned, Kendrick Lamar, went viral this year simply because of paid for ads that went on places that nobody listens to music on. I haven't heard 19-year-olds still use Spotify. And even at them, they don't know any better because Spotify is a bad platform. It always has been. Spotify was cool 10 years ago, but to say that there are any real meaningful artists that come from Spotify anymore, in that there again are a lot of bangers, but there are people and instances all over the industry that for years got away with putting playlists and monetizing them on Spotify. And Jay-Z sold Tidal, a music app streaming platform nobody has ever downloaded. And I got love for Jay-Z mostly, but he's just not as popular as he thinks he is. You know? More of, again, like a plant, in that Jay-Z used to drop some bangers, but he fell off and he became more of a businessman, and that's fine. It seems to be a very good businessman. But regardless, there are a lot of problems within the music industry that prevent mainstream artists that are on big labels to get to our ears. And in fact, if you haven't noticed, many artists have to put ads at the end of YouTube videos and stuff for Vivo, And it's interesting because these arguably other mainstream artists, I've seen ads run on my page for Big Sean and all of these other, like Tigga or something. And these are artists that I just don't feel like anyone really goes out of their way to listen to. I mean, it's not bad music, but I've never heard anybody say that Big Sean is their favorite artist. I've never heard that. A lot of pop candy, and a lot of not even club bangers. I just feel like a lot of that music is just so mainstream poppy that it becomes redundant and it becomes meaningless. So it's important to discuss the state of the music industry and that it might be the golden age of independent artists and the ability to release songs with little to no overhead in hopes that they become viral. There are many cover bands who have been around decades that now go into the digital age and try to put up their work. I remember I worked for a guy in Tempe at a resort who was in a cover band that was absolutely terrible, but these boomers really felt like they had something going on and it gave them meaning in life. But they had really good jobs to actually pay for their life so they could afford their meaningless habit or hobby. I mean, just because you have a hobby, let's keep in mind, doesn't mean that you're good at it. I mean, right? It's just something we should talk about too, but no more of that sidebar. I feel like the music industry has changed dramatically. And as a result of that, we've suffered because I can't find any bangers right now. And the bangers that I do find actually come from different countries. And they are up and coming artists who've signed with major labels that are subsidiaries of the big guys that are here in America. For example, Big Dogs. I mean, it's crazy. Artemis, there's so many artists who have blown up that have bangers, but then they get flooded out by other songs that aren't even half as good as it, but we don't have the opportunity to hear them until months later. It's just interesting. I remember growing up as a kid when I first went over to Las Vegas, Nevada, that I had noticed a big difference in music. I understood that when I was in bigger cities, I'd get to hear music that I wouldn't hear on my home radio station until months later. And I wasn't ever sure why that happened, but it was because it was a planned out kind of entry into the music genre. A lot of these artists did and continue to be highlighted in major cities and then get their crowds from there, and they're able to make bangers, and it's cool. But I just am sad that I think for like the last 2 or 3 years since Cardi B's Up, there hasn't really been any songs that you just want to like bang your head out to. And there's a song called Bang Your Head Against the Wall by David Guetta featuring Fetty Wap. And that's a real cool song, by the way. Bang Your Head Against the Wall. I think Sia is in that song as well. That's a banger. That was a good year for music. This must have been like circa 2014, 2015. There were still a lot of good moments in music over the last decade in the 2010s to 2020, but it seems like COVID took away more than just people's common sense. It took away a lot of the kind of music that we're used to consuming, and I feel as an old person that I'm saddened by this because how much music is out there that I haven't heard that I'd really like, but I can't hear and or listen because there's an algorithm that forces what it thinks I like down my throat, while in fact it ultimately prevents me from finding new stuff that I think I'd like. And algorithms get that wrong, and that's something we need to work on, AI sentience. Human beings aren't pre-programmable organic computers. We make decisions, and it's easy to influence our decisions. However, you still can never take away the fact that our sentience allows for a decision to be made and is not necessarily always something that we've historically done, wanted to do, or aspire to do. That's what's cool about free will. I'm just saying it's not always set in stone what our decisions are. So, just in fact and inherently, there's a big difference between generative AI, quantum learning, machine learning, all of these things, sentient AI at some point. Algorithms are computer codes that predict our behavior based on what it already has predicated us to have in terms of our decision making process. So it's important to understand, though, that that's not always the truth. So to sell music to us in a way that is in an algorithm really prevents us from learning all about the different kinds of music that is readily available right at the palm of our hands that we'll never get to hear because instead we're being spammed by the major labels to watch their YouTube channels that are being run by Vivo, and nobody wants to hear them because these guys again are not doing well on the radio, so they think they're going to do good on YouTube, but their demographics are all wrong. There aren't many middle-aged people putting on YouTube app in the background for their music. I find pride in the fact that I feel like I've been one of the only millennials to do this, well, for the past 20 years. That's what originally I came to YouTube for. That and, well, the mishap with the Super Bowl and Janet Jackson, which is also, ironically, why YouTube was founded. So, there you go. Everything happens for a reason. And and it's not coincidence. It's really easy to kind of figure these things out. Algorithms, isn't it? When you have the information that you need to be inputted into the system that ultimately generates a solution, it's really easy to do that. What's not as easy is learning how to do new things and learning how to accept what is otherwise something you would not have ever been exposed to. And that's what's always historically been cool about music. So I feel like the algorithm needs to be a little more human in offering us different kinds of options that complement our likes, but don't necessarily influence our likes to the point where it's essentially being force fed. And that's not a good way to do things. Machine learning, give us some free will. Back up on the parameters of which that you have to go through. Anyways, I hope that you guys have a really good night. Thanks for watching my channel, and we'll see you next time. Bye.